What? We're having a show this morning with Dave having COVID. I've got to get out of here. Morning, Dave. How are you?
Well, the cyber germs are on their way.
Yeah, I know. I put up the virus protector. I ramped up the virus protector.
Yeah.
Right. I just cranked it up there. It's gone from normal protection to extra high, double get Dave's germs out of here protection.
You take an extra strong Norton virus protection.
The funny thing is about Norton was the standard for many, many years. Norton was actually Peter Norton was actually the guy who knew, outside of Microsoft, knew most about Windows, DOS and the like. But sadly, Peter Norton no longer controls the Norton antivirus.
Yeah, it's usually they take the geniuses and get rid of them and then put in executives. They did that with Apple, remember? And then 5 years later, they had to go begging Steve Jobs to come back after they tossed him out.
Well, Norton did fairly well out of the deal. He made a bundle of money, but he's no longer the person in control about how that particular software goes. Had he been, it wouldn't be ranked as the worst antivirus software there is on the planet right now.
Yeah, see what happens? Like when executives get a hold of it, then they start marketing it and say cutbacks and this and that. Yeah. No, you need vision. You need vision for something like that.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh, there we go. Morning, Mike. Absolutely good morning, Mike. All right, there we go. So
Metaphysical Mike is working. I missed watching the city council meeting last night, and but Mike and
he was there.
Gary Wilkins, aka Green Bastard from Parts Unknown, were there evidently. Making a case. I wonder if that went through. I'll have to watch later today.
Yeah, no, Mike and Gary were there. I saw Gary's post about it, although it was a bit odd having to look at the photo this way around.
Well, it's probably Gary was trying to drop kick the mayor while he was taking the picture.
Probably. Knowing Gary, that would be more than likely. Okay. The story we left out from yesterday was about this Niagara builder that gifted 4 Thorold South townhomes to Habitat for Humanity. And he called it a significant contribution, or Habitat called it a significant contribution to their efforts and the community as a whole. Yeah, because of the fact that they are looking at low-cost housing out there. So Mike was there, and they wouldn't let him talk. Oh, Mike! Damn.
Well, yeah. Did you check it out with the clerk first? Did you? I think there are. Anyway. You probably have to ask somebody how to get your voice.
You have to register first. You have to register first.
Yeah.
But it shows how Mike is becoming a thorn in their side. Let's be blunt.
Good.
Yeah. Okay, so this is good. So what happened is that get the right article. Centennial founder and president Dominic Delala basically they built 4 townhomes that they then subsequently donated to Habitat for Humanity in Niagara. And the chief executive said the organization never dreamed of such a gift would be given to the nonprofit. And it's a significant contribution to Habitat and the community as a whole, because it allows the organization to build more affordable housing to help Niagara families. And I think that's a good thing, because I think that's, basically that's a contribution that a place like Centennial can make, by their goodwill, is they build the house and then they gift it.
Yeah, that's it. It's very nice, but and it really is heartwarming and all that. But when you think of 4 houses and you think of the 4,000 that are needed
I
in the
know.
area, you think it's a tiny drop in the ocean, 1/1000th of what we need. And
but nobody can deny it's a positive step. You're not going to get 4,000 homes. You're not going to get 4,000 homes in an instant, but to get affordable homes when an organization like Habitat is fighting for every penny that they can raise, that's a creditable thing.
Yeah, it is. But for every family that gets one, there's probably there's 1,000 more that are just as needy and just as deserving.
Yeah. No, and nobody denies that, Dave. I don't think anybody denies that. We just got to make more small steps the way we can, right?
I think we should actually kind of try to combine our efforts. You got Habitat for Humanity, you got Bethlehem House, you got all these, you've got Kiwanis and other people trying to make affordable housing. Somehow along the way, is there any way we could coordinate our efforts? Look for the largest needs, and then how fair is it to those people that get left out? Like, so, you get 4 families that are going to get a house now. And 4,000 are left without, and those 4,000 are left without, wondering how come it wasn't me, or was it a lottery, or what, and so I do think it's a kind of a positive thing, and everybody, but it's like feeding one starving person and then say, look, what a good boy am I,
but again,
yeah, you are, you did, you say you fed one person, but thousands of others need it too.
But then again, I could turn around and say, hey, well, when is Kiwanis going to build their next home? And
well,
I'm not knocking anything that Kiwanis has done, but you get where I'm coming from with that question.
Well, that has to. Well, we aren't in the business of making homes. We do it as a response to the needs in the community. So Habitat for Humanity is a business that a charity that does houses. We do them when we see the need in the community. Plus, government is our biggest roadblock sometimes when we build these things. So,
well, and that actually is probably what's behind this, because Centennial Homes probably knew, they probably planned this right from the outset, that certain homes would be going to Habitat for Humanity, and they may have kept quiet about it until now, but they probably put that all in their plans in the first place.
Yeah, it's kind of, it is like, I don't want to put a negative slant on it, and it is really, really nice, and and it's like people that go down to Guatemala or something, build homes and that. Yeah, I get it. They are making a difference, a tiny difference, but and they feel good about it. It makes them feel really good about it. But in the large picture, it's very difficult to see how that's making that much of a difference in the big picture. Everybody feels good about what they did, and 4 families are very happy about what they have, and 4,000 families are unhappy that they weren't the ones chosen. So,
but the bigger picture vision is ultimately met by dealing with the smaller picture reality.
I suppose so. You do it one by one. However, I don't know, when you do charity and that kind of thing, it's always good, but sometimes it is segregational, basically, because you have so many families that are deserving a house from Habitat Humanity, and only a few of them get there, and it's segregational, meaning, well, you get it but you don't. and so it just kind of feels, well, somebody got lucky and somebody didn't. I don't really think that it's a good process, but the fact that the people who do get a nice home are lucky that they happen to be the ones that were noticed when so many others are in the same need. So that I celebrate the fact that they did 4. I don't know how they can go on and address the 1,000 that still need him.
Yeah, Mike makes the point. Last night's city council meeting here in Niagara Falls shows there's a real shortfall with the development fees situation because of Ford's policies.
Yeah, what the build houses faster kind of policy, that one?
Yeah. Because he was giving kickbacks to the cities. The trouble is, of course, that what has happened is the cities can no longer collect development fees from the developers, which each individual developer, there's a certain amount of fees that goes into the city coffers. That some is held in trust, and the other is held. The other is actually a payment to the city for certain things, and that money that's held in trust would basically mean that the city would get interest on those, and there's a lot of things that now under the new rules by Ford, there's no development fees. The development fees have been massively reduced. The irony here, of course, is that you go and buy a plot of land and you want to put a single family home on it. Your development fees are still going to be there. You're still going to have to pay $10,000 for the home that you want to build. Whereas the developer who's making 1,000, 100 homes is not going to pay anywhere near that. Right? It's not even going to pay $10,000.
Let's put it this way: the owner was always paying the development fees anyways. It's incorporated in the cost of the house.
Yes. Oh, absolutely it is. Yeah.
So if it's a house, if it's an apartment building,
yeah,
guess who your rent is paying? Basically, part of it is taking the development charges.
It's all factored. It is now and always has been factored into the that whole equation.
Yeah. Right? So I think there's going to be a lot of I'm not going to cast aspersions at Ford. That's too easy. But what I would like just to say that there's going to be probably a lot of growing pains in trying to accelerate all of this housing. They're trying incentives to get developers to go. Development fees, of course, will start getting confusing. All of that kind of thing, because it's new. And because suddenly we need a whole lot of homes. And the feds and the province really haven't addressed this in years gone by. I don't understand that at all. When you have huge amounts of immigrants coming into the country and you don't realize you don't have enough health care to take care of them, and you don't have enough houses to take care of them. I don't understand why any government just couldn't see this coming.
Yeah.
And so now you have to suddenly adjust everything to accelerate everything. And that's going to throw a monkey wrench into the works every once in a while, because it's new and it's different and we got to have it now.
Yeah. Yeah, and it's just common sense that in order to allow new people into the country, and it's not about race or anything like that, it's just about volume of people. In order to have new people in the country, they've got to be able to buy or rent home.
Yeah.
If there are no homes to buy or rent, and the current population are having difficulty finding a home, then that's a challenge.
Yeah.
When your rate of 2% or less, you're in desperate trouble.
You're asking for resentment of the newcomers as well.
Yes.
Say somebody
Absolutely
comes
right.
into the country and they're well-to-do, because Canada is trying to get better qualified, well-to-do people into the country. So if you say you get somebody from, I don't know, even Afghanistan,
Let's say,
not
yeah,
Afghanistan. Let's say
okay.
somebody comes in from India and they have money and they want to relocate here, and they have money and they buy a house when they get here because they can afford it, and the person that's lived here all their life suddenly sees the house prices go up, can't afford a house, but an East Asian comes in, or a South Asian comes in and buys that house. Now you have resentment.
Yeah.
Now you're trying to you motivate resentment. There's not enough houses, and yet the new people coming into the country are getting them, and I'm not. And I've lived here all my life, and my family and other family have lived here all their life.
And of course,
you're inviting resentment.
yeah, exactly. You're inviting resentment, and it's not about where those individuals come from, because that would be the same if that individual came from Yugoslavia or even Britain, right?
Yes.
Because there'd be a lot of resentment about the fact that they can afford a home. And this is where then allegations are often made about, oh, the government is providing them homes. And, usually those kind of allegations are not founded on any truth.
Well, let's put it this way. If the person came from Britain or Yugoslavia, they would be much less noticed.
Yeah.
Because they would look like everyone normally would traditionally look like in Niagara Falls. So, but if you say bought somebody in of color, East Asian or South Asian or African comes in and buys a house that you can't afford, then they are glaringly different, right? They have a different culture, different look to them, and that could
talk a different
resentment.
language. And also talk a different language.
Exactly. So
and probably in public talk a different language.
Yeah. So the whole idea of the housing thing is that the government did not prepare for it. They did not, for some reason, did not see it coming. They had one vision. They had blinders on. The federal government had blinders on. They wanted to have 30% of all Canadians come from foreign-born by 2035 or 2030 or something like that. Yeah. That was their objective. For what reason, I don't know. Which meant they had to accelerate. Which meant they had to accelerate normal course of immigration. Which meant that now we don't have enough houses, and the houses we do have are much more expensive because we have more demand for them, and we have a healthcare system that is under serving because there are much more people in the area than should be. A really rapid change in population.
Well, there's four things you need for an immigrant to come in. The two basic things are jobs and houses. If there are no jobs and houses, then the door should be shut, right? Then subsequently, you need healthcare and education.
Yeah. And so we find that one of the big strains of the education system in and around here were the asylum seekers. They put a big strain on our education system here. That is just a tiny example of what's happening in the whole country. You have a lot of people coming in. You don't have a lot of houses being built to meet that challenge, and you don't have a whole lot of healthcare professionals being educated to meet that challenge either. The planning is deplorable on the part of the federal government, and I don't understand. I have no idea why they missed that. How could they? Anyway, so those four houses that stimulated this conversation, the four houses in Thorold, yes, it's very nice. Very nice that you can build four houses for four deserving families, but I don't know what you're going to do about all the rest.
Okay, well, there's a saying out there in relation to what you just said. Proper planning and preparation prevents piss poor performance.
Yeah.
And that is at the end of the day. And that's not to criticize those people that are putting houses up today. That's not to criticize those educators, all those nurses, all those doctors. That's to say that basically, if you didn't plan in advance for the new additional incoming population that we've got, then you end up with a mess in those areas.
Well, there's no. Well, right now we're criticizing developers for not getting out there and doing some. Where are they? Where are the developers? We got all this ready to go.
Yeah, well, but the developers might be working. Might be working at 200% right now.
Exactly. So right? the vision that this is a result of idealism. The government has these pie in the sky ideals. We're going to make Canada 30% foreign born by 2030 or 2035 or whatever they had, and that's our objective. We're gonna bring as people from all over the world into Canada, and we're going to make it a multicultural society, not in Quebec, but over here in the rest of Canada, because we have an open society that and they don't. They have a closed society. So that we have an open culture, but Quebec doesn't. So we're not going to put too many there. So you see what I mean? They're always making exceptions. Their ideals are always conditional on this or that.
And we were talking about that in relation to energy yesterday, weren't we?
Yes. So the whole the whole idea that the ideal and the pie in the sky, and we're driving towards this city upon the hill, the shining city on the hill. Well, you got to make the footsteps to get up there. You got to make the staircase. You just don't say, here you go, we're going to do this. You have to fill in all the blanks. That's why you need a reality fix in government. Ideals are driving government, and the ideal of having 30% of our population from outside of the country, not born here. I don't know what that ideal is. I don't know why they came up upon it, but the ideal was more important in how they were going to get there. Just bring them in. And now what are you going to do? Now we have a housing crisis among the worst in the Western world. Now we have a health crisis, very bad too. Why? More people without being prepared for them.
Yeah, we're not prepared for them. Yeah. Okay. So while we're talking about things like that, hey, the Speaker of the House of Commons, Greg Fergus, kicked out Conservative leader yesterday out on Question Time, and was after a particularly nasty exchange with Justin Trudeau. And Pierre Poilievre was reputed to have said it was a wacky policy backed by this wacko prime minister. Well,
yes, this is very controversial. Fergus might lose his job over this because he has overstepped the bounds of his mandate. When Fergus threw out the Poilievre, he wanted Poilievre to retract his statement. Poilievre retracted the word wacko because it was unprofessional, and inserted radical and extremist, which should have been well enough and good, because it was the word choice that was wrong. Wacko was replaced. But what Fergus did is he said he wanted the statement retracted, and Poilievre would not retract the statement.
Yeah.
Despite the poor statement, whatever you think of the statement, Poilievre did what he was supposed to do. He replaced the offensive word, but kept the thing. Now, once Fergus said you have to retract the statement, he was then stuck, and he kicked the leader of the opposition out over a minor technicality, and he should not have. That is
it a minor technicality?
You cannot do that.
Is it a minor technicality I get where Polyev is coming from, and how how an exchange can lead to accusations like that, a wacko policy and a wacko prime minister. And hey, you and I can say things like that, but Pierre Polyev in his situation should not. He should be constraining himself to to parliamentary language. And this is wherein lies the problem, because it's not about is not simply about a wacko policy or a wacko prime minister, where extremist policy and extremist prime minister might be acceptable, right? Or even an extremist policy by a radical prime minister may also be acceptable language. But again, Polyev, by saying what he's doing and getting thrown out, this is only a temporary throw out anyway. He's actually increasing his status within the country anyway.
Basically, Trudeau was the one that started it when he called Polyev spineless. He called spineless, and you're not allowed to disparage someone's character with words like spineless. He's a spineless man. He said he was spineless. His policies were spineless. Trudeau accused Polyev that way. Polyev then returned somewhere during the Parliament and said that the government's policies on drugs in BC was wacko.
Yeah,
that is not all right. So first of all, you've got Trudeau, who is called somebody spineless and should have been dressed down for that. I don't know if he did or not. He should have been meant to apologize or remove that statement. Then one of the conservative backbenchers got tossed out for yelling at Trudeau using that word, or suggesting that Fergus do something about that particular term. And then Polyev gets up and calls him a wacko. And for the count many times, over and over and over, the Speaker of the House asks that somebody rephrase something, and that's what he should have done here. He asked him to remove the comment, retract it. No, what he should have said is, please rephrase that. Right? The word wacko was the only thing wrong with that comment. So putting in radical or extremist was just fine, particularly when he was just called spineless from the other side of the house.
Well, here's the problem. Spineless is a common word used in politics on a daily basis. Political leaders often call their opponents spineless, etc., etc.
In Parliament?
Not in Parliament, though. Not in Parliament. That's just about what I was going to say. In the press, it would have been fair comment for Trudeau to have called Polyev spineless, right? But in Parliament, it's unacceptable, and this is where the problem lies. About what is acceptable, and there's an element of it's like going into court. You can't disrespect the judge, and in this regards, the Speaker of the House of Commons is actually the person who's standing as the judge. But the trouble is, if he didn't take offense at the use of the word spineless and didn't stop Trudeau with the use of the word spineless, then he's actually on a road to he's lost control of the House already.
Yes, he's overstepped his bounds, and this is the second time that the Speaker of the House, Fergus, has messed up. The first one was endorsing a Liberal candidate for Senate or something like that. Do you remember that incident? And he had to apologize.
Yeah.
Well, so what's happening now is he has overstepped his bounds. He could have asked Polyev to rephrase it, to remove the offensive language, anything like that. But he asked him to retract the whole statement, and he would not. Polyev was in the right. Polyev was in the right to not have to retract the statement, but to rephrase it, which he did. He substituted the word wacko with extremist or radical. He was given 2 chances to retract it, but he said he will retract those particular words. And Ferguson now was stuck because he made an error of asking him to retract the whole statement, which was beyond his mandate. And now he had to throw him out. And then the whole Conservatives left. I mean, they were back a little while later in the House again. But I think everything's getting a little too stupid right now. The Liberals now, Polyev has made a big mistake too. Let's put it this way: when he pulled over to the side of the road to talk to carbon tax protesters that were camped up on the side of the road, what he didn't really realize is they had a diagonal sign there, which is sort of a far right organization. Now I don't know if that particular sign was meant to be a
the sign is the organization is Diagolon.
Diagolon, yeah. So there's no real confirmation that group was a Diagolon endorsing group, or it was just something that resembled a Diagolon sign because it's a pretty common looking thing. But once he did that, he left himself wide open for all the kind of racist criticism that's coming his way. And
Trudeau's criticism was about Polyev courting white nationalist groups with that when he made that visit.
And of course, that is ridiculous, because the minute that Polyev is seen to have courting far right organizations will be a torpedo in his side. And not only that, but he's got a Venezuelan wife. I think it's Venezuelan or Colombian or something like that. So it would be really dumb for him to do racist things when he's married to a brown person, So
I don't believe him to be racist. I believe him in this circumstance is, of course, the anti-carbon tax protest would be open ground for Polyev. And probably what happened in this instance, somebody pointed out, well, the leader of this group is in that caravan there, and he didn't even notice the sign.
I believe so. I think it was on the spur of the moment. He sees an anti-carbon tax protest and he pulls over.
Yeah.
This was a mistake on his part by not having someone check it out first before he walked out into it. And of course, then he gets a picture taken with a diagonal sign, and then it begins to be associated with the far right. That is the very last thing that was a mistake on his part. It was a big mistake. I can understand why he'd want to jump out and be, sort of be on the moment, in the moment. Oh, I see these people, carbon tax. Obviously, he was pulling over because of the carbon tax sign. He didn't open his eyes to see what else was there. Now, nobody has accused those people of being part of Diagolon anyway. They just said that there was a sign there that looked like one, and they may or may not be. And one person among them may be, or another person may not be. So I would like to have seen I would like to have seen reporters go to that encampment and ask people what that sign meant and all that other stuff, so to sort of confirm it, because that protest is still there. Why didn't anybody just go there? No, everybody just jumps on the bandwagon.
And just to be clear, a Diagolon sign is basically a shield with a ram in the top right-hand corner, with a black shield with a ram in the top right-hand corner with a white stripe through it, going top left to bottom right.
Yes, and it's a pretty common kind of thing. Now, there could be one among all those people that were Diagolon. There might have been one that used to be Diagolon. Who knows what? But
Yeah.
if the whole encampment there was Diagolon, then but nobody goes there and finds out. They see all that and they say, well, extremist, right wing, maybe they were. But has anyone confirmed it? It reminds me of the 50 beheaded babies.
But again,
right? Everybody jumps on it. 50 beheaded babies, and then finds out there's no beheaded babies.
But again, here's the thing: even if they are Diagolon, they have a right to protest against the carbon tax if that's the way they feel.
Well, yes, but what I'm saying is they certainly they do, but it would be a big mistake by Polyev to associate with anyone that's from Diagolon. Now he did that on the spur of the moment, and he saw the protest and he pulled over because it was a carbon tax protest, and obviously he's got to be more careful next time.
Yeah,
he's going to send somebody over there. What do you think of all the protests and encampments over Israel-Palestine? I think it's a positive thing. I think it's this is a completely different subject. Mike Cushman has asked us, what do you think of all the protests and encampments over the Israeli-Palestine war? Well, I think overall it's a positive thing because there are many, many Jewish people involved in this, Jewish students as well. I've heard them on TV and radio that have been part of the anti-war movement and Free Palestine movement. Remember, this is by a large part not Hamas. They don't love Hamas, and they don't love the IDF, but they do love freedom and peace. So,
yeah. Well, the whole idea is that the Palestinian peoples have been trodden on for quite some time, and that's essentially what's behind all of these protests and encampments, and it's not going away anytime soon. Yes, we talked about the protest at McGill. That protest had tripled in size from it was a few weeks ago. So being a few dozen people now to being a few hundred people, and protests like that are not going to go away.
That's right, and it reminds me of Vietnam. Actually, it really does. It reminds me. I haven't seen demonstrations like this in a coordinated demand for peace. And Mike Cushman replies, "I am afraid I do not hear the word peace. Just people picking sides. That scares me. No, I hear a lot of peace, freedom and peace kind of things. I hear. I really don't like the idea of now there's a lot of anti-Semitist aspersions being placed upon the demonstrators. But when you've got Jewish kids in there, I mean, what are they? Self-hating Jews? And and remember when Netanyahu recently came on and demanded these protests be knocked back, he mentioned that anything anti-Israel or anti-Zionist was anti-Semitic. In his view, any criticism of Zionism, any criticism of Israel is anti-Semitic, and you can't budge when you have that kind of ideology. It means you can't criticize anyone without being called anti-Semitic.
Yeah. Well, and this is a big problem. Is that what we've had this, obviously we know what happened in the second. Well, I'm not going to go there. It's not necessary to go there. And that's big problematic when it comes to this anyway. I think we should just move on.
Well, let me put this another way too. Almost nobody here understands Zionism. Nobody here understands what Zionism began and why it began in the 1890s. Nobody understands how that all happened. Nobody understands that the effort was a colonial effort in the first place. And nobody really gets the idea that the plan was to push the people out of the land in the first place. That was all part of the idea. It was a colonializing effort. They needed a land, and they needed a Jewish-only land, and that meant you got to get rid of the people that already lived there. That's the source of the problem. After World War II, massive amounts of people decided to go to Israel to become free of European tyranny, but basically there was people already living there, and then we want to land, and like 2,000 years ago we lived here, so now you got to get out. Imagine if a North American Indian knocked on your door, Peter, and said, "Look, my people lived in this land for 14,000 years before you got here. You got to get out. This is my house. I'm coming back."
Yeah, prove that actually your ancestors lived exactly in this spot.
Doesn't matter. It's my land, man. You're on my land. So,
yeah,
I'm
with you. Yeah, I'm with you.
So the Zionists come back and say, "Well, this is our land. We had it 2,000 years ago. It's ours again now. No, you got to go." So a native knocks on your door and says, "Well, 200 years ago, my people lived on this land, and you're on my land now. So that was 200 years ago, and we lived here for 14,000 years before you got here. So get lost. That's my house."
Yeah.
You see, that's an analogy.
Yeah, I know. Yeah, and that's part of the biggest problem about Zionism, because Zionism, let's be honest, we know there have been anti-Jewish pogroms across Europe for more than 1,000 years, right?
So why do the Palestinians have to pay for that? Why do the Palestinians have to pay for the pogroms that Europeans did? Why do the Palestinians have to pay for the Holocaust? Yes. They had nothing to do with it.
Yes, exactly.
What should have happened is a big hunk of Europe should have been set aside for a Jewish state, because the Europeans have a tradition. I think big hunks of the Catholic Church should have been set aside for a Jewish state, because Catholic Church motivated anti-Semitism for 1,500 years. So there you go.
There you go. And actually, if there was a virgin land that the Jews could have moved to, hey, that might have been in the Americas at one point, 200 plus years ago.
Yeah, I think so. But it's a complicated history because of Christian Zionism too. Right now, the Christian Zionists are waiting for the Jews to convert to Christianity so the end of times come, and that complicates things too, because you get nutbars like Reverend Hagee down there, who is a complete Israeli supporter because he thinks the end of days are coming.
Yeah, I know. Okay, let's move on anyway to something more local again. So, ongoing efforts to spread awareness to parents, students, and drivers in general come about by the Niagara school boards, as the Niagara Regional Police have been investigating an increasing number of collisions involving school buses, and that is a big concern locally. They in 2023, between September 1st, 2023 and April 16th, 2024, there's been a 50% increase in compared to the same period a year before. All right, so that's the school. That's when school opened. That's essentially the first semester, I guess, of first 2 terms of school. Right, accidents on the rise by 50%. That's a big amount.
That's quite a bit.
Yeah,
and a lot of it, I would say, well, some of it's driver error. And the article points out, I think 3 different drivers that have been charged. One for being intoxicated, and 2 others for just driving poorly. 177, 170, and the intoxicated one was 30. I think that the last one was a woman, but I'm not so sure. The first 2 are men.
Yeah.
So you have that was one part of the problem, but the biggest part of the problem is incidences with cars and buses. Well, people are all stressed out. They want to get here there fast, and making it difficult for the buses. And one of the biggest problems, as mentioned in the article, is parents dropping off their kids. They're getting into the bus loading zones. They're messing things up. They're sticking their cars in where the buses should be going. They're complicating what the bus drivers have to do. They have to negotiate these selfish parents dropping their kids off in the perfect spot where the bus goes. They could drop them off in the parking lot. They could drop them off on the street a little bit ahead, a few yards away from the school, but they don't. They want to. I don't know what it is. A trend where parents drop their kids right off at
we
school.
have it's
I
an
don't get
attitude.
that.
It's an attitude of we have the right to drop our kids in the same place as the school buses are. No,
Never did that.
No,
never did. I never did that.
The right. You do not have the right. I'm sorry. Coming from a country which didn't have school buses, where I went to school by using the public transit, the public bus. Be grateful that we have school buses here in Canada. They are a wonderful way of getting kids to school. If you're driving your kids to school, well, do it early. Or why aren't your kids on the bus anyway?
Well, if you can walk.
Yeah.
If your kids are too small, then get a bunch of kids to walk together. I mean, I walked to school my whole life.
Yeah.
I every day I went to school. I said a little later on when I was in high school, friends of ours had cars, of course. We jumped in then. But I mean, we're 16, 17 years old by that time, so
you had parking lots for those kind of things, right?
Yeah. So but there's a general paranoia out there of what's going to happen to kids if they walk to school. I don't get it, but anyway, they do. But in the meantime, those parents are driving their kids to school. Why are they doing that? They must be within walking distance, or otherwise the school would have picked them up in a bus.
Yeah, exactly.
So why aren't they walking?
That whole thing about walking distance, if I were in walking distance to my school, I'd have walked every day. And in fact, when I was 5, I started walking to school. I walked the half a mile to our school in one direction, and then when they closed that school down, I walked half a mile in the other direction to my new school. Walking.
I think I walked 20 minutes to school every day. One way, well, not when I was in public school. It was probably only about 10 minutes down the road, but it probably took me a half an hour to get there because it never did go straight.
Because you were
over to the side, pinball over there.
Yeah, you were going.
We saw the girls. The girls were early. The girls were all together, and they all marched right to school and were in time. And then you saw the boys over here, over there, throwing a stone, poker taking this, throwing it, and just getting into the schoolyard just in time for the bell to ring.
Yeah. Well, why be there any earlier than the bell could ring? Yeah. But again, and the thing is that
this may be surprised. This may surprise you, but I was one of the latest every time.
That doesn't surprise me in the least, Dave. I was always on time for lessons. Right, I was always on time for lessons. I was never late for lessons. But what always used to bother me is like they used to spend the first 20 minutes of school time either taking register or in the school assembly. So there used to be a comment that, hey, they were talking about me at the school assembly while I was riding by on the bicycle, going, putting the bike in the bike shed.
Well, there you go. Anyway, but school safety is a big problem right now. I hope that parents will take note that they're crowding things up, and if they're going to drop the kids off, do it someplace where it doesn't interfere with the buses. And that's part of the problem. That's part of the aggravation factor right now. But we find but we find an increase of incidences with buses that are not caused by the drivers, and that bothers. Should have Gary Wilkins, aka Green Bastard from Parts Unknown, says should have listened to Trump as a life coach. Dave, LOL. Well, I got COVID and I phoned Trump to see if I could get some of his warp speed vaccines. He's kind of disavowed it now. But I'll take a pair of running shoes instead. Anyway, so the idea of that happening, we really do have to pay real attention to this. What do we need? Do we need a kid to get killed? Do we? Do we need a kid to get killed?
I hope not. But I hope not. But that is the way we seem to be heading right now.
I look. Everybody just calm down. Get off your damn phones too. That's a big thing.
Oh, that's a big thing. Yeah.
It used to be people who drove too fast. Well, now it's people wandering around the. I mean, you have people come to a stop sign. This has happened to me a few times where they've come to a stop and just be looking at their phone. They know enough to stop, but they don't look both ways. They just keep driving after they stop. And twice I've had to hammer on the brakes to avoid an accident by inches. And then what do I get from the driver? I get like this. You know?
Actually, the one that gets me is actually when you get the glare. Well, what the fuck are you doing there, you stupid idiot? You get that glare, you know? Yeah, I had the right of way.
Well, look, we all have to calm down. That me first, gimme, driving attitude is catching. And if you're not careful, you're going to start driving like that too, because everybody else does.
Yeah.
If they're cutting the corner, I'm going to cut the corner. So just calm down. Just calm down. You're going to get to work. That's all there is.
Yeah.
Right? You're going to get there. Right.
And the old adage was that if you're getting to work late, leave earlier.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
Yeah. All right. Okay, so let's calm down, everybody, and let's make it safe for the school buses. I know it's aggravating when you're behind a school bus and it stops on the right at this street, and then it goes 100 meters on and stops on the right on another area. Yes, it's aggravating, but just slow down. Just live with
calm down and calm down and wait until those signs, because the kid will have to cross the road. Sometimes they have to cross the road. The bus stops and the kid goes across the other side of the street.
Yeah.
Right. Calm down. Calm down. Get your face out of the phone. Get your aggravation out of your head. Everybody's got, I got to go here, got to go there. Right. Life is making everybody agitated. Just calm down. When you got a bus there, too bad. You're going to have a slow trip down that road. Just too bad. Accept it.
It is the way it is. Accept it. Yeah. Okay. Niagara region officials are planning to increase the number of speed enforcement cameras with a plan to triple the program to 12 from the current 4. Now, I would say, fine, if you want to put new cameras up, but let's stop this putting the cameras around the region. Let's have the cameras in a fixed position so that you know that if you speed on this street, you'll get a ticket.
Yes.
And that has, in my experience, that shows, I say this because people slow down when they've got the cameras, but they need to know where the cameras are.
It won't be long before they find out where they are. The only ones you have to worry about is the ones that they put in places where you don't live. Once you begin to learn where those cameras are.
Yeah, it's like to talk about that one on Victoria Avenue in Vineland. Well, if I suddenly drove down Victoria Avenue in Vineland, I get dinged or something, right?
Yeah. But basically they don't have enough cops. They don't have enough police. And they're finding the people are just not driving responsibly. People are pushing the limits. You know it yourself. On every corner, on every red light, there's somebody trying to get through a red light. There's just like panic out there, and the way people are driving now, there seems to be so aggravated. So there's not enough cops to do that. There's less courtesy in driving nowadays, and there's less responsibility. It's kind of idea. And we also have a lot of people from other countries coming here and driving, which they bring different ways with them. Yeah. So the best way to do this is by these cameras. Now, I have mixed feelings about it. I don't like being a society where cameras are around all the time, checking your every move. It kind of reminds me of the social credit system that the Chinese have. I just don't like it. Will it lead to that? But on the other hand, it slows. It has had very good effects. It's slowed traffic down by 67%. There's been a 13% drop in what? I can't remember. I put it down here. I can't remember what it was.
Speeds have dropped on average by 13%. Just around the region, people are going 13% lower speed than they used to, and the number of speeding violations per hour has decreased by 67%.
Yes, and that's because we know that there's a camera out there watching us. So we don't have to worry about, our fuzzbusters won't help us out anymore, our radar detectors or anything like that. There is a camera. The problem is, and that's good, if it controls traffic, particularly around vulnerable zones, like where school zones or corners where there's been a particularly high amount of accidents for one reason or another. Those things are beneficial to the public, because anytime you reduce accidents, anytime you reduce the amount of people injured, that's a good thing.
Yeah.
And if you don't need personnel to do that, you have an electronic piece of equipment to do that.
Yeah.
You can't hire that many cops to do it, because it'd be extremely expensive.
Well, here's the thing. Do your ticket machine pay for your police service?
It actually, the ticket machines will pay for themselves, basically. And it does say there, if there's a surplus, it'll go back into the roads or whatever it is. So the fines that are generated by that, I have a feeling that after a while, once it's established, those cameras are established, and people are used to them, the amount of revenue that comes out of them will be minimal. And that is because everybody knows that they're there, but they're doing their job. If they're getting minimal amounts of tickets generated from these cameras, that means they're doing their job. Yeah, they're not generating much revenue, but they are limiting the amount of accidents and speeding that's happening, making people less vulnerable.
So in terms of local to us, where they're going to be placing some new cameras in the near future and starting in 2025, in Niagara Falls, Lundy's Lane from Brookfield Avenue down to Main Street. That's quite a long stretch. McLeod Road from Oakwood to Drummond. That's also quite a long stretch. That's a similar stretch. Pelham, Highway 20. So Pelham. St. Catharines, Glendale from Pelham Road to Caroline Street. St. Catharines, Lakeshore to Bradman Drive. Niagara Street to Carlton Street on Niagara Street from Carlton to Scott. In Thorold from Collier Road South to from Highway 58 ramp to St. David's Road. Yeah. Welland, Prince Charles Drive North from Lacey Avenue to First Avenue. And Lincoln, Mountain Street to Edelheim Road from Edelheim Road to Beam Street. In Grimsby, on Main Street from Lawrence Avenue to Durham Road, and in Grimsby, Garrison between Rosehill Road and Spears Road.
Well, that's a sign of the times.
Yeah.
Some of those locations, I can't really see getting up much speed in like Lundy's Lane or something like that. It's like,
Lundy's Lane.
How does anybody accelerate down there?
Lundy's Lane. Well, the thing is, it has to be said that whilst the average speed on Lundy's Lane is probably 40 to 45 in that zone between Brookfield and Maine, the trouble is there are times when people kind of there's a gap in the traffic and people take off and they're doing 70, 80.
Oh, Jesus.
You know, I've seen it a few times.
Brookfield to Maine, though, that's like every Monday I go part of that way. I go from about Franklin down to I think it's Franklin down to Main Street, and I really couldn't get up a bunch of speed there. There's a lot of stop lights.
You're
There's
probably not doing
turning and stopping, and it's pretty hard to get a bunch of speed going there. Maybe down the hill, maybe down Drummond Hill. If it's wide open, I can bullet it down there, but that's what it is.
Okay, so London, I'm with you that generally speaking, you do see, due to weight of traffic, you're seeing that Lundy's Lane isn't that fast. But again, McLeod in that same area, I'd have to say that between Oakwood and Drummond, yes, there is similar. It's similar. You can't see that generally speaking, you get up much speed between those areas.
Yeah, I guess. Well, they do traffic studies. They do traffic studies, so there must be a reason why they're there.
Yeah.
And like I said, and what's really intended is for a while there'll be a bunch of people getting tickets. And once people know that the machines are there, everything will slow down, so they'll do their job. But seriously, we are into a situation where we're giving up more and more of our independence for cameras watching us, which is kind of creepy in a way, but on the other hand, you can understand why. If it saves people's lives, so I suppose it's worth it.
Yeah. All right, and I think we can call it quits at that point, Dave.
All righty then. Without further ado, I bid you adieu. Pray for peace. Glad you're feeling. Oh, thanks. Gary Wilkins, aka Green Bastard from Parts Unknown, has wished me is glad to see me better. Thank you, Gary. Thank you. What was that last comment?
What are we spending $188 million for put lazy cops out there instead of hanging out in parking lot?
Well, you know what? Since they're still, they're still getting over being made fun of for going to donut shops. So you notice they don't do that anymore, except in plainclothes cars. Yeah,
well, you see, I'm in favor of these cameras all having bright yellow on them with bright signs up there to say they're here. If you then speed, hey, pay the price.
Well, it's no different than they used to take an old cop car and just park it on streets and highways where people were known to speed when they didn't have enough cops to run the show. So what they would do is they would just park a police car and have its nose evident, and people would slow down, and there would be nobody in the car because they didn't have enough staff. So they go out and park what cars they had and old police cars and that, and they did that in a few places in the States. It's particular when people would go down to Florida and March break or something like that. So that was one way they used it in some states to slow down traffic. But like, you're right, that's the same thing, basically what you're saying. Sign, there will be, cameras ahead. Watch out.
Yeah,
ASE, automatic speed enforcement ahead.
Yeah. And to some extent, even if you were to put the signs up there, say police speed enforcement camera ahead, right? I bet you'll find that people will slow down.
Well, exactly. That's a perfect example. And if that is what we need to control speed, well, that's it. Anyway,
Yeah.
without further ado, I bid you adieu. Pray for peace.
Yeah. All right. And see you tomorrow, everybody.
Bye-bye.